So, I'm going to tell you a story, and I really hope that you get it more than first service did. There was a little boy named Alex, 7 years old, standing in the church foyer, staring up at a plaque, and on that plaque were all of these names, and surrounding the plaque were American flags. And he was standing there trying to make sense of it in his 7-year-old mind when the pastor of the church walked by him and said, "Good morning, Alex." Without taking his eyes off of the plaque, he said a quick hello. And he asked, "Pastor, what is this?" And the pastor began to say, "Alex, those are the names of the men and women who have gone to protect our freedom and who have died in the service." They stood there soberly for a few moments, staring at the plaque. And with a voice barely audible, Alex asked, "Would that be the 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. service?" You've had coffee. As most of you know, Sue is taking a spiritual retreat. She's taking some time off to find balance. And I will be with you for the entire month of July, which I'm looking forward to. And I will also be spending time with Sue this month. And before I get started this morning, I want to say two things. I want to share just how much I stand in awe of this decision that Sue has made. I've been in that position before, and I know what a tough decision that was. I probably knew before anyone in this room of her trying to make that decision. She and I had talked on the phone several times. We prayed and meditated on what she would say and how she would present it. And secondly, I stand in total respect of this congregation, of your board, of each of you as individuals, as staff and volunteers who stand behind her in that decision. And though she knows not what that next step looks like or feels like, she is trusting that all is well. And I know that you affirm that with her. I went to your website this last week and I listened to Sue's last sermon at this place on June 22nd. I'm trying to make it January. And she gave a sermon called Sacred Pilgrimage. And I have heard Sue speak countless times through podcasts and through your website. And I have to again give voice to whoever is in charge of your website. Kudos. It's always up to date and always has the information I need. And when I'm not sure what time I'm supposed to be here on Sunday mornings, it's there. And you know, after I have talked with Sue and I have heard her speak, I listened to that particular sermon, and I invite you, if you weren't here or even if you were, to go back and listen to it again. Because she gave, of course, a wonderful talk, and in the last few minutes of her talk, she became this charismatic evangelical minister, and she said that she was ready to not only take this sacred pilgrimage to come apart for a while and rest and heal, but she did it with the knowledge that she would come back better, more. And she invited you to do the same. And last week, Reverend Carla McClellan joined you in affirming that it is not only Sue's path, but it is each of yours. Not only is she taking a journey, each of you will be taking a journey. This congregation as a whole will be taking a journey. And so I join you today to begin the journey. And on the screen, you will see the title that I have given this month-long series, From Grief to Grace. I just want to know how many of you just came up with the story that we would be talking a lot about grief. Most of you. I practiced this morning in the mirror just how to say from grief to grace, so that I gave no intonation, no inflection on the word grief. And yet, you read it, you heard it, and you made up a story that we would be talking a lot about grief. I even underlined a different word, and you still heard grief. We will be talking about grief, but not the majority of the time. What we're going to do over the next month is take this sermon series, and I'm going to break down each of these 4 words. And today we start the journey, as with all journeys, from. From where are you? And to where are you going? You know, every journey begins with a beginning. There is a point A, from, and there is a point B, to. And I want you to just consider this morning the word from. What does it mean in your life? When I first came here several months ago, many of you asked, and I am asked this every Sunday that I'm in a different pulpit or every speaking gig that I'm doing, the same question. Where are you from? I'm quite bored of telling that story. But I wonder, why do we ask that question? Does it matter? If I were to ask you where you were from, what would your answer be? Most of you know that I reside in Tulsa. Am I from Tulsa? I wasn't born there. I wasn't raised there. So I could say I'm from Tulsa. You wouldn't know the truth. I could say I'm from the city of my birth, but is that the truth? I could say that I came from the womb of my mother, but is that the truth? We're talking about truth today with a capital T. And in my questioning what this word from is and our continual asking of where are you from, I've decided that it is important because it creates context. It begins the story. It allows that point A of the journey so that we can then understand if you've made it to point B. We can judge you all the more how far you've come from point A into this point B. So I'm going to ask you this very familiar question, where are you from? But I'm going to ask it in a different way. And I want you to sit in the question. What is your from? Not where are you from, but what is your from? We have just sang several songs, which again, I got to choose, about source. What is your source? Is that your point A? Is that your from? As I mentioned, I came from Tulsa to Springfield. But is Tulsa my from? I shared in first service that 3 weeks ago, I had my entire month of July booked. I was actually taking this weekend off for the holiday. Next weekend, I was supposed to be in a different city. The 3rd weekend, I was having a friend in town who I've not seen in a long while stay with me. And then the 4th weekend, I was supposed to be in Dallas. And within a 4-hour period, just a couple of weeks ago, my entire month changed. I got a phone call that said, I think it was from Chicago, that said, we'd rather you come in September. Can you move your date? My friend who was coming to stay with me couldn't get a flight on Friday, so he's coming during the week. And then Dallas called and said, can you come in October? My entire month opened up, and I received a phone call from Sue that said, can you come? There are no mistakes, right? But I came from Tulsa last night to Springfield, and I continue to ask you the question, where am I from? Where are you from? But more importantly, what is your from? If you've ever been in traditional therapy in the last 20, 30, 40 years, 50, you have probably understood that most traditional therapists have always looked at where you are in reality, your point B, where you are now, and take you back to point A. And they call that your belief. What are you believing that would cause you to shift and move into reality, point B? But I've been studying what we call thought processes for many years. And scientists and researchers are still trying to agree on exactly how many thoughts we have every day. They've narrowed it down to a range, and they say, most of them, that we have between 38 and 50 thoughts a minute. And that equates to about 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. A lot of thinking. And that is just when you and your body are at rest. If you are in a time of crisis, whether that be grief or stress or worry, fear, whatever it is, that number rises. So what we do now in therapy, and especially in what we call transformational coaching, is we look at where you are in your reality right now, your point B, take you back beyond the belief to what we call the originating thought. What is the thought that came into your mind over and over that you believed and then manifested into this current reality? I ask you, is the thought you're from? Many of you are shaking your head yes. Thoughts come to us just like raindrops falling from the sky. They just come and come and come. And we try to believe as many of them as we can. We try to make them true. But that same research indicates that only about a third of them are true. 2/3 of them are untrue. And yet we try so hard to make them true. I grew up in a family where we were not allowed to leave the table until we had cleaned everything on our plate. Were you in that same family? And so that wasn't even my thought. It was my parents. And yet I believed it for many years. Then I went on to college, and I went on to being single, and I went on to finding restaurants that served portions this big. And I continued to believe the thought that I couldn't leave the table until I finished everything on my plate. Thus, I have this. I'm changing that thought, finding one that is more true. And the truth is, I have lots of options. I could donate that food. I could leave it there. I could take it with me. All of those are more true than I have to eat it now. As we have sang about source today, in my meditation, I even reference divine love. And many Unity ministers will talk about what we call divine thought. It's another name for God, if you will. And when I was going through that traditional therapy journey, I was interviewing different therapists so I could find the right one for me during my grief experience. And I finally did encounter one who answered my question, which was, who is God? Because I wanted a therapist who I could connect with, not only emotionally, but spiritually. And without hesitation, without a breath, she said, God is source. The source of me, the source of you, the source of everything. I knew I'd found my therapist. I ended up finding unity because of her. And as I began to question this definition of God, and began to question the definition of source, began to question, where am I from? I found that I didn't just begin in this physical body. I began before this physical body with a thought. Yesterday on the way here, I was listening to NPR, and I hope that you would take some time to find that podcast when they talked about the stars and how we are all pieces of stardust. And it was an incredible interview with some of the leading researchers and scientists. And they told us that all of us at some point in our life we continue to have this fascination with our galaxy. If you can get out of the city, you can see the stars more clearly. And we have all at some point in our life stared up at those stars, and we've all wondered and questioned, what was before this, and what is beyond this? I've been questioning that same thing. And I know that you are questioning that on your spiritual journey right now, as an individual and as a collective body. And I will say to you that what we say in unity all the time, but hear it with new ears, is that you were source before you came into this body. And even though you are focused now into this personality, the larger part of you is still that source. We often say that I honor and bow to the divine within you. It is where we get the word namaste. We talk about the divinity of each person, just as the divinity of the Christ, of Jesus, of the Buddha, of whoever you want to claim, was represented in their time and space. It has flowed through time and space and become a part of us. And that continues to resonate in the understanding that wherever you are in your reality right now, I just have to say that was the funniest thing to hear crickets while I was speaking. I just can't let that go. Oh, good. Not just me. Wherever you are in your reality, if we backed you up to what you're believing, and then backed you up even further into what your thought was behind that belief, can you find that thought? If your reality is suffering in any way, fear, worry, grief, whatever the case may be, where did the thought come from? In unity, we don't talk much about evil. We say over and over that there is one power and one presence, and it is God, and it is good. And so, in knowing that, in affirming that, in believing that, we understand that this point of good can never be anything but. And we cannot separate ourselves from it. Now, we can distance ourselves from it, but we cannot separate ourselves from it. It is where we get the word reality, in understanding that it is realization. We realize that there is one power and one presence. And though that spark of divinity within you, that inherent place of source within you, is still offering this vibration, you have awareness of it. You just may not be realizing it at this moment. You have awareness of it, whether you have realization of it or not, because you have emotion. You have a feeling place. And in that feeling place, you are either connected with it, you feel the alignment to it, or you feel the discord from it. Several weeks ago, I was giving a talk, and and I write my own intros because they introduce me as a teacher. Even though that sounds lovely, I've never liked that term because I believe that we are all teachers and students at the same time. I'm learning from you at this very moment. So I'm not the teacher. And spiritually, in any life experience, we are either teaching a lesson, we're learning a lesson, or we're functioning as the object by which that lesson will be taught. And on this or any journey, we have a tendency in our humanness to hurry up the lesson, speed it up. We want to learn it, we want to be done with it, we want to get on with it. And yet, I'm going to ask you again, would you just allow yourself permission, as Sue is doing right now, to sit in the question? To just sit in the question. Not where are you from, but what is your from? What is your source? Yesterday I left from Tulsa. My destination was what? This weekend, what was my destination? Good answer. Not true. My destination is Tulsa. I love you very much. I just don't plan to spend my entire week here. My destination is to get back home, to my own bed, to my business, to my employees. My destination wasn't Springfield. And yet, I didn't pack all of my hair products and say, I'm at my destination, I'll just stay here. I went on the journey. And that's what this life experience is all about, the journey, not about the destination. The journey is full of joy and pain. Beautiful song that Joe just taught us. It is full of everything from the sunrise to the falling rain. And one of our spiritual powers is what we call imagination. It's another word for thought. We have a thought. We begin to imagine what that feels like, what that might look like, what that is, who we would be. And with that thought, with our divine imagination, we begin to ask for more of it or less of it. Those are the two choices. We either want to connect with it or we don't. Again, you cannot separate yourself from any part of Source. You can distance yourself. You can distance your mind, your thinking. We've all been in traffic and just all of a sudden you're out in la-la land and someone's honking behind you to go. We distance ourselves from our very conscious state of being. So when my therapist said God is Source, my next question became, well, what is Source? See, I'm full of questions. Have you noticed? Who is God? What is Source? Who am I? And I began to look at what that felt like, what it felt like in the present moment and what I wanted to feel like in time to come. Just as you saw these words on the screen and you heard me say from grief to grace, you connected with one word, one feeling, one thought. Most of you connected with the word grief. Some of you connected with the word grace. Few of you connected with the word from. But it is that very thing, connection, relationship. So what is my from? What is my source? Who is my God? Not a big guy with a white beard up there, out there, but rather my connection to this thought of the divine, or any thought. Your connection to your thought about anything is your point A. about who you are, where you're going, who you will be. And as we talk about thought processes and we back you up from where you are in reality to the belief to the thought, I'm skipping several steps. And one of those steps is we have a thought, we believe it, and then we feel it, the emotional piece of us. And then we began to live into the manifestation. Earlier we looked at this scripture, and I want to read it one more time from Philippians 4. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. If you are a follower of Abraham Hicks, Esther would stand in front of you now. She'd do something funky with her mouth. She would get into the zone, and she would say, if we were in your physical shoes, we would focus only on the things that matter to us. We would fix our thoughts on things that are true and honorable, things that are right and pure. We would think of only things that were lovely and admirable. We would think about things that are excellent, and we would focus on everything that was worthy of praise. And then we would see the universe conspire to allow us to receive it. It is co-creation at its best. Where are you coming from? What is your from? What is your thought? Is it a thought that is good? I tend to believe that it is, because it continues to bring you back to this place. Is it a thought that can be expanded upon? I believe that it is, because it continues to bring you back to this place where you ask for more. It's time to expand the thought. It's time to expand our awareness and our consciousness of our source so that we can get on the journey and begin to go to or towards a higher consciousness. Your homework assignment for this week is this. I want you to fix your thoughts on things that are lovely and true, pure, admirable. I want you to reach for a higher thought, a higher consciousness, a new vision, a better feeling, a more in tune knowing, a greater reality, a higher realization of source. Why would I give you that as an assignment? Because I believe I've been here enough to know that this church, this congregation, your spiritual leader, you as an individual, and you as a collective body are ready for it. I also truly believe, and I affirm with you on the journey, that you as a church, as a congregation, you and your spiritual leader, you as an individual, and you as a collective body are worthy of it. It's my honor to be on the journey with you. I'm only one step ahead, still able to hold your hand, and I will see you next week. Namaste.